Hey everyone, this is Mr. K, and today we're going to go over the vocab words for the Precalculus summer review. So the answer key is pretty self-explanatory. There's just a couple things that I wanted to go through. So first is just what is a zero. Just know that a zero is the same thing as an x-intercept, which is the same thing as a root. So knowing that a question can ask you the same thing three different ways, and just know that that's where the graph crosses the x-axis. So the process, there's a lot of different ways for doing that. Basically, you're just setting your equation equal to 0 and then solving for x. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. Factoring, quadratic formula, sometimes just simple algebra. So just be aware as to how to do that. The second one is finding y-intercepts. That's just substituting in a 0 for x, because that's going to tell you where the graph crosses the y-axis. If it's a function, this should only happen once. If it's not a function, it can happen more than one time. The process for finding x-intercepts, remember it's the same thing as 0, so what we previously talked about for number 1. For numbers 4 and 5, the most important thing is for angle of elevation, angle of depression, is those angles will always be equal to each other. And I kind of drew that in the angle of depression picture here. Is that think of it like this: is like if whatever angle I need to climb up the mountain, that's got to be the same as the angle I need to use to climb down the mountain. So that's why, like, I always kind of relate in my head that, oh, the angle of depression has to be the same as the angle of elevation. Most students make the mistake of putting the angle of depression here, and so that's why I just drew the whole entire picture there for you. So just be careful of that. Vertical lines and horizontal lines, most students just get those equations backwards. So a vertical line is always x equals some number. My example here that I gave you is if I wrote x equals 5, if you look, I find where x equals 5, and then I would draw a vertical line there, and I wrote out like just some sample coordinates, is that if you look, all of the x values are the same. So that's a way to kind of remember, okay, a vertical line, all the x values are the same, so it's got to be x equals a number. And then same thing for y with the horizontal lines, is that it's y equals a number, and it's going to give you the horizontal line. And again, in my example here, gave you some sample coordinates, and all of those have a y value of -2, and so y equals -2 is my equation. And then last but not least is the quadratic formula. This should look familiar. You might have done it in different ways, might have done it in pieces. Knowing that the -b/2a, that's always like your axis of symmetry. Remember that the b squared minus 4ac is called your discriminant, and that kind of tells you how many solutions you're going to have. But just remember, like, know how to use the quadratic formula whenever you want to solve a quadratic equation. And I have it as like ax squared plus bx plus c. Just know that a, b, and c will be numbers. You'll be given values like the 2x squared plus 3x plus 4 as an example. And you'll see that later on when we get to some more examples throughout the review. So I hope this video kind of gives you a nice, good little recap of the vocabulary. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. Otherwise, have a great day.